Again, once you have made your blood altar and you've gotten the basics of just getting your own blood, etc., and you've got a blood orb, we can make an alchemy table. So again, it's really, really easy. You just need to make a blank slate by putting some stone into your blood altar, and we can make an alchemy table. Now, when we look into the alchemy table, it's actually very similar if you've already used the Hellforge, and if not, then don't worry. So there's a few slots, basically, where you can put in items, including your blood orb. So your blood orb actually goes in the top right here, and that's going to be where you're using your blood network for crafting. This is the crafting bar, and this is where you put 6 ingredient slots and your output in the center. What you'll notice is that when I click these buttons here, you can see that the right-hand side ones are lighting up. So what the hell does that mean? Well, let's have a look at the alchemy table recipes. Using some sugar and some wheat, in the alchemy table, we can make bread with some blood. So let's do that. Let's put in a piece of sugar here and a wheat, because we're making bread, not the other way around. And a piece of wheat. And as you can see, the crafting bar goes up and the wheat will come out, so the bread will come out in the center unit here. Now, if we wanted to pull this out automatically, what we can use is these buttons here. So as you can see on the outer ones, it's showing an arrow going in, whereas if I click on the center one, it shows an arrow going out. That is because the center one is obviously the output. That is where the bread is made. So what we're saying here is on our output slot, do we want to export from down, up, north, south, east, and west? So if I click these as green, it means that other mods like item pipes can actually interact from these sides for the output. If I click this one, it's saying, can I input into this slot from these sides? Do I want to input my sugar from the north, south, east, west, etc.? So if I had an item pipe over here, which is the east side, if I had this one here, I wanted to input my sugar from the east only, I could leave this side as that. When I click this button, it shows you what the setup is for there. And that's how you can input and output into the alchemy table automatically using the sides. You just simply click and then highlight which sides you'd like other mods, item pipes, etc. to be able to use for that slot. One of the first items you're going to want to make in your alchemy table is going to be arcane ashes. Put in gunpowder, some white dye, some redstone, and some coal in with your blood orb, and you will get some arcane ashes. So just put those ingredients into the slots around the outside, make sure there's some blood in your weak blood orb, and then it will complete and you'll get some ashes in this central slot. What we then do is we place our arcane ashes on the floor, so you can right-click them, and this is what we call an alchemy array. What we can then do is put 2 items on here and actually do something. So if we actually go into our sanguine scientium and go into the alchemy table, alchemy arrays here, this is where you'll find most of the info on this. Don't worry, I'm going to explain it to you, of course. Functional arrays. For example, we have a spike array here, which basically means any entity that goes on top of it will be hurt. And that shows you that we have an arcane ashes one here. The bottom one is what the array is made of. It's arcane ashes. The first one in the circle is the item you put in, and the arrow one is the one that you use as a catalyst. So cobblestone and iron ingot here. So to show it in practice, I right-click in the cobblestone, and that changes the array. And then I use the iron ingot, and you'll see it start spinning. And that has actually made it into the spike array. What that means is that when an enemy steps on that, they will be hurt by 1 heart. There's also a day and night one. If you use lapis and lapis, it will turn it to sunset. If you use coal and coal, it will turn it to dawn. And that's a great way of changing the time of day really, really easily. We have movement arrays, and there's some other ones. So if we look at crafting with arrays, we can actually look at the sigils you can make. So there's air, divination, lava seers, sigil of holding, magnetism, suppression, blah, 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 blah. When you use these, they are actually going to draw upon your blood network, like in your orb, to actually be able to use them. So let's look at, for example, the lava sigil. You can see here that in the alchemy table, I first need to use a lava bucket, a redstone dust, some cobblestone and a block of coal with some blood, which is going to be one whole bucket of life points in your weak blood orb, and that will turn into, in the alchemy table, a lava reagent. You can then use the lava reagent and a blank slate, remember that we made earlier, using stone in the blood altar, and that will make you a lava sigil. It's the sister to the water sigil. When holding the lava sigil, you can right-click it to create a source block of lava on the ground for the cost of 1,000 life points. It'll drain 5 hearts from you if you don't have enough life points in your soul network. So a lava reagent we can make in the alchemy table, and then we use a blank slate to make any of these sigils. So I've got my lava reagent here and my blank slate that I made earlier. I can put down my arcane ashes, right-click the lava reagent, and then right-click the blank slate. And as you can see, it's starting to get to work. And after a lot of spinning and craziness, it is going to turn, plop, into, there we go, a lava sigil, which I can then use by right-clicking to make a block of lava. There's loads and loads of different sigils that you can make. Sorry, my apologies. There's the water sigil that will basically do the same. It'll work as placing a block of source water. Now, when you are actually using buckets of water in your alchemy table, you can use a water sigil instead in the alchemy table recipe, and it won't use up the sigil either. So rather than keep getting buckets of water for your recipes in the alchemy table, you could just use a water sigil, which is even better. The sigil of magnetism increases the player's item pickup range. You can toggle it on or off by holding it in your hand and holding left shift and pressing right button. So crouching and pressing the right button, but it will consume life points every 5 seconds while active. There's things like Sigil of the Frozen Lake, which is the Frostwalker enchantment as a sigil. There's loads and loads of sigils in here that can be really, really useful, so I would recommend having a look through these. And if you're not sure where they are, under categories, it's alchemy arrays and then sigils. There is also living equipment, which basically needs some iron armor, some arcane ash, of course, and a binding reagent, which will be something like your iron helmet. And you will need at least a common Tantaric gem, so you will have had to upgrade your gem at least once. It's equivalent in durability to diamond and can be repaired in an anvil with more binding reagents. What is binding reagent? Well, you just use these 4 ingredients in your alchemy table, and there's your binding reagent. So basically, it's diamond armor that is a lot easier to make, in my opinion. And you can see here, you can use it with your iron helmet, chestplate, leggings, and boots. So you put the binding reagent on the ashes as the first thing, and then put the iron helmet or leggings, etc., and you will then get the piece of armor that you want to make. It starts off equivalent to iron, but it has upgrade points that can, with care, be spent to train it in specific ways. So you start off with 100 points. You can upgrade it later, but this is going to be in something called, if I can find it, it's going to be in something called rituals, which is a lot more complex. So I'll go over that later. So these are like the rituals here. For example, the Sound of the Cleansing Soul. As you can see, it's not quite where we're at yet in the Blood Magic mod. But what you can make is a training bracelet, because it does start off with 100 points. So again, just use some binding reagent with a diamond in some arcane ashes, and you get the living armor training bracelet. When you open it up here, you can see that you can add some tomes into here and actually upgrade it. For example, if you want to add elytra to it, you can use a binding reagent with arcane ashes and an elytra, and then use this elytra 1 upgrade, and you just plonk it in here for you, sort of thing, and that will add that to your armor. But that is a tad more complex than we're at right now. The other 2 things you can do with alchemy tables is potion crafting. By putting glass bottles into your altar, you get alchemy flasks, which have 8 uses. And then you can fill it up with water by using the alchemy flask with a water bucket. And then you want to make some simple catalyst, as you can see here, which again is made in the alchemy table pretty simply. And then you can use that, for example. So just literally in the alchemy table, you could put in an alchemy flask, a simple catalyst, and a golden carrot, and you will get night vision 3 minutes. And as you can see, there's loads of different ones that you can use in here. So it's basically a way of making potions that have a lot more uses than the usual Minecraft bottles do in your alchemy table, just as you'd craft anything else. If you also, in the alchemy table, use one of those blank slates that you've made with some stained glass, you can make 8 slate-infused vials. When you then use those vials, again in the alchemy table, with something like neverwort, iron ingot, and a bow with some blood, you could get, for example, an iron tip, a repairing salve, and these are salves that you can put onto your gear and items to improve them. As you can see with the repairing salve, for example, it repairs damaged tools by 1 point when the tool is used. So unlike the potions in the flasks, when you apply these to your tools, they won't be used up over duration as such, but they will be used when you actually use the tools. So they may have only a certain amount of uses built into them. And that is pretty much everything you need to know about alchemy and the alchemy table in Blood Magic.